All right. Hello again, everybody. That's right. We're back again. This is the wrap up of season 2 of Louisiana Catalyst podcast. The Link. I'm your host, president now of Louisiana Catalyst, Deron Talley, here with our founder and the guy who allowed me to put his hat on, Mr. Quentin Durr.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Chairman. He's not used to his new title.
I'm adjusting, but certainly glad to be here. We're here in downtown Ruston at the Origin Bank, beautiful facility that they just opened up this year. And so we're always thankful and grateful for our friends at Origin Bank for their continued support of Louisiana Catalyst. But without further ado, I want to bring in this young man who's come in with a lot of energy and got me excited to hear what he has to share with us. He's a community leader and entrepreneur here in the Lincoln Parish area, Ruston area, has ties even in Monroe. He's done name dropped a couple guys that I know already. So he's a good guy. He's good in my book already. But you guys already know him. That is Mr. Walter Allen. How you doing, Walter?
Man, I'm doing well. Deron, Quentin, just excited to be able to spend a little bit of time with y'all this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, glad. Walter and I met through some acquaintances in Union, and
Wow.
we had coffee and burned up an hour or so real quick, and was like, we're going to follow up with multiple and maybe even a podcast, because the topic of entrepreneurship and workforce, I can talk all day on that. So we had good conversations, and I'm looking forward to all the stuff you're going to do. I agree with you 100%, the need, and so anything we can do to help, of course, moving forward, you got our support.
Yeah, 100%. When we think about workforce development, there are multiple components. The thing that motivates me the most is that young person looking for a prospective career. And the reality is that young person, their expectations are a lot different than what they were even a generation ago. But if our organizations and companies are willing to come alongside them, I think that we have an untapped labor force that's willing to do really great things. We just got to kind of meet in the middle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I love your perspective, because from what I'm hearing just in that initial intro is you believe that we have young people here that can work and just need a little support along the way getting in position. And so you're saying that will come from the help of the company, from the hirer, from the employer.
Right. It really is a both and responsibility. At the end of the day, that young person's got to be able to get up, be to their job place on time, dress appropriately with an attitude to be able to produce an outcome, if you will. But unfortunately, it's that motivation. Unfortunately, our young people today, or maybe fortunately, depending upon your perspective, is that it's just not that hourly wage that's going to get them out of bed. But if they are a part of an organization where they see they're a vital part, they are more likely to engage and also stay engaged for the long haul. When you think about, businesses per se, I'm very fortunate. A little more than 4 years ago, my wife and a business partner opened up a small business here in Lincoln Parish, and we have great retention. The one of the tests that I say is, will your employees come whenever they're not on the clock? The other day, it was a slow day. We have a local coffee shop and bakery. We knew with the schedule of our students at Louisiana Tech and Grambling State that they weren't going to be in. It was going to be a slower day. And we look in our shop and we see we've got 6 patrons, and all of them are employees, and none of them were on the clock. That there's such an environment there that they wanted to be a part of, that even though once again, they weren't being paid, they just wanted to be there. Now, that's unique into our industry, but regardless of what your industry is, are you creating an environment to where they want to be there?
Wow.
Yeah, I agree. I think creating an environment, but also accepting the responsibility that it's up to the business to help continue to train your workforce. And that's not just that hard skill, but it's the soft skills as well. Go in a little bit, if you would, about some of the stuff you've seen. I know you've worked with a ton of youth, but what have you seen from that perspective, from the coming into the workforce, and where do you think the employer should meet them?
Sure. Well, when we talk about soft skills, there's a long list of what that means. And so for me, it really just try to keep it very simple. I tell everybody I have a degree in physical education, so I have a BS in PE. So I have to keep things real simple. And when I think about the value of these soft skills for that young person coming into employment, sometimes we assume a lot. And once again, I refer back to when I was very young in my education. I remembered you should never assume anything. So when we think about these young people should be able to come, at the right time and also, with the right dress and have the right attitude, that's a wrong assumption to make. Now, especially in light of, our recent history where we were very isolated, where we had very limited social interaction. A lot of that was formative times for these young people that they don't know what they don't know. So for the company to be able to say, hey, look, these are our expectations, i.e. the soft skills that you need to really be employable and communicate those expectations up front, then you're able to really come alongside them once again to help coach them to be able to be that employee. Part of my experience was working with a nonprofit that focused on coaches and athletes. So a lot of my terminology, and once again, my background being with PE as it is. So if I say athletes, I apologize. No. But coming back to it, that employee, once again, if they agree with your purpose as an organization, i.e. to share purpose, then they are more likely to acquire the skills that they need. And so then once again, how can that working environment continually reinforce those skills so that young person can become very efficient and, in whatever those skills are?
Yeah, I would almost want to say, and this might get me in trouble, but it's a hot take, if your employees aren't engaged, then your culture may not be where it needs to be. Like if they haven't bought in, essentially. So where do you see like culture playing a part in an organization, also internally motivating, the new workforce coming in?
Sure. So none of this stuff is copyrighted yet, so I'll give it to you guys at no cost.
All right.
But, I love to say that, our companies, they need to focus on their organizational health. So how are you doing as a company? And one of the tests that I say is you got to do a core workout. You got to be able to say, okay, what are your core values? What are the things beyond just making a profit? We understand that if you're not making money, someone once said all you're doing is a hobby. But if you're profitable, then your culture is what's going to accelerate those things. So what is your purpose? What are your core values? What's your business definition, if you will? But allowing, once again, those things to really be your pitch, if you will, to that new employee, but also that reminder for your current workers to be able to say, look, this is why we're doing what we're doing. So it's that core workout. And I will just lean very much into that. From a personal perspective, if you don't have a strong core, then you're going to have a lot of other internal issues that you're not even aware of. But when you start to address your core at a personal level, then all of a sudden other things begin to become more prevalent or more, you become more aware of those things and you're able to address those as well. So it really is that quote core workout that's needed by that organization as it relates to organizational health.
Now, Walter, I absolutely love your approach to looking at this because, when you look at your background and you keep mentioning, coaching and physical education, our companies, our organizations, they are living things. They are living organisms. And so to approach that from that physical body perspective isn't invalid or incorrect. That's another lens, an innovative lens to look at it. And as I hear you define, thinking about the core workout and things like that, if these companies truly look at themselves, am I really creating a culture? Kids aren't looking for companies to work for. They're looking for cultures to be a part of.
100%.
Yeah.
And there again, it's not only something that they want to be a part of because they get a paycheck.
Exactly.
It's because of our culture, right, wrong, or indifferent, so much of our time is spent working for that employer. They want a place where they feel accepted. They want a place where they feel challenged. And that's where I think our greatest potential is. Once again, they have access to more information than any previous generation. And it's what will they do with that information? And I think that's one of the most untapped resources, or that's where their greatest potential is how can they bring that knowledge and access to knowledge to the current workforce so that it is creating these sustainable companies, if you will.
Yeah, and once you actually do get their buy-in, reward them, in which you probably advertise you would, but also that management piece too. That's something else we talked about. If your management isn't on board and they're not equipped to deal and learn how to internally inspire, not motivate, but inspire their employees, then all that work and culture can just collapse on each other. So What are some of the services you see that you would want to offer businesses, and what levels and who could benefit?
Sure. So I basically would ask a question up front. When you think about your current management style within your organization, is your management more equivalent to that coach that rolls out the ball, has a whistle around his or her neck, and is just waiting for something bad to happen? You know, all of us had those experiences, and I think that's what's so beautiful about it, is that regardless of employer or potential employee, is that we can all empathize with that being in that PE class, right? But if you had that coach that simply rolled out the ball and had that whistle, there was still a lot of social development taking place. But unfortunately, there was a lot of unhealthy social, emotional issues taking place, right?
Right.
But if you had that coach that instead of just rolling out that ball would come alongside you and identify the skills needed to be successful in whatever that discipline is, then they were only there to enhance the experience, but not only enhance the experience, but reinforce the experience. And then also a good coach makes sure that everybody's engaged.
That's right.
And I think that's the tension that we have. From a management perspective, the only people that get our attention most often are those who are just killing it and they've got, quote, natural talent, and those who are being social misfits, those who are having to be disciplined. And really in short order, we want to get rid of those young people usually. And so for that management style to be that manager who's willing to be like the second, that coach that comes alongside their employees, once again, clearly communicates expectations, also helps communicate that there is accountability.
Yeah.
Because this, as much as we want to make it a welcoming environment, there's still something to be accomplished.
Absolutely.
Then I think those things are what would help any business from a management perspective, be more effective, specifically with our younger workforce.
Absolutely. What do you say to our schools here? Right, we have our high school programs that are starting to do things to give our students a trade and a skill. Then, of course, we have our colleges: Louisiana, Delta, Grambling, Tech, ULM. What do you say to them to help ensure that the skill needs to be developed?
Sure. Well, once again, I greatly respect institutions of higher learning. Okay, so I know that they spend a lot of time and effort in building these philosophies, if you will, and these different academic trails. But at the end of the day, as I see it, is that we're human. And if you were to zoom back from 2024 to 1924 to however far back you want to zoom out, we're still flesh and blood. And there's still just some very basic skills that have to be identified and reinforced. And what are those skills? Once again, I think seeing someone's humanity is of utmost importance. That young person is not just somebody coming to fill a position. Secondly, is that young person aware of their value, and that value is greater than whatever skills they have currently. And so whatever skills they have, that's just gets them in the door. But how can you continue to come alongside them to help them develop greater skills? Yeah. So I think that's probably where I would start, is that, the humanity of our young people has to be highlighted. And then from there, what is it? Here in our Western culture, we're about time. We're always punching a clock and things. I laugh. I've been very fortunate to have friendships with people from other parts of the world, and time is just another thing. But for a lot of people, time is the only thing. So helping them develop healthy habits to be able to manage their time well, to secondly, to have a little bit of effort whenever they're there. It's not just about being physically present and getting a participation award, so to speak, but it's that, my values directly related to what are the outcomes that I produce? And is there a metrics for that that's beyond just, simple profitability, if you will? But once again, that's a real heavy question. But I think the foundation of it is valuing and highlighting the humanity and then building in those soft skills along the way.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that skill has been lost in a sense of who's supposed, like the responsibility, because, some will say, oh, that should be taught at home. And then some want to place it on the school system. And then kind of like we were talking before, like I started my first job at 16, day one, I turned 16 at a job. Now companies don't want to hire, minors because of the labor laws, and it comes too difficult to manage. So people aren't going into the workforce until 18 or older. And so, like, who's supposed to bear? And I think that's where the opportunity for you is definitely going to be, is working with it's that kind of like a catalyst of some measure of working with the schools, whether that's junior high, getting in early like we talked about, or high school to college, but also even if they haven't got it by then, when they start the company, now the companies can bear that responsibility, because at the end of the day, they got to learn it somewhere. So I just appreciate your effort and your passion towards that, because with the workforce stuff we've done, the grant work we've done, as the number one issue is soft skills. There's super high technical skills being learned, but the soft skills of just showing up, being on time, how to work as a team, you know what I mean? Some of those skills are just lacking across the board.
Right. And once again, I think part of it is we have chosen to make the profitability the sole outcome. It doesn't matter what it takes as long as we get there. At the end of the day, though, I think that we'll look back sometime down the road and say, you know what, we missed out on a great opportunity. And honestly, down the road might be right now, because our young people, they are unmotivated. I met with a mother recently, and she was like, look, I've got 3 kids. First one, highly motivated, got out, got a job, got it done. Second one still lives at her house, thinking about maybe moving out, all this kind of stuff.
Thinking about maybe.
And this is a traditional family with a mother and a father in the home, has established these values, that sort of thing. And she was like, well, what do you think about that? I said, well, if you're asking me my opinion today, what you need to do is you need to kick your son out of the house, because once again, you made it too comfortable for him. So that's one extreme. But the other extreme is you've got young people, they've got nobody at home, and they're trying to figure this thing out on their own. And what we're talking about, the value that, first of all, that you see value in yourself. Secondly, you see value in others. I think the bridge between those two things is the trust factor. And trust is not given. Trust is not given. Trust is earned. And are we creating those environments for those things to happen? So yeah, that's where, I believe one of the highest virtues that any of us can aspire to is empathy. And that is, hey, for that young person who is currently not even seeking employment, what is his safety net? What is her safety net? And how can you remove that in a way to where they don't just crash and burn, but they can see that they can stand on their own 2 feet. And for that business, for sustainability purposes, if you're not willing to invest in this younger generation, what are you forfeiting? You can continue to hire the older generation that have these things, but eventually, last I checked, age doesn't have a expiration. If you will.
Father Time is undefeated, huh?
That's right. There's the say no saying. Sure.
Yeah. Wow. No, Walter, man, this has been a great conversation. We sit here and talk all day just off of your energy alone, man, but obviously your understanding around the challenges and opportunities that we have here for our workforce and our next generation in our companies. But man, this has been phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah. We appreciate, before we wrap up, you want to give everybody just a brief overview of what services you want to try to offer and what's next for you?
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. This is fresh. You talk about entrepreneurship, necessity is the father of invention. That's
right.
And so I am excited to say that I'm entering into this world with a new venture. And really, you won't surprise you, but I'm calling it Gym Class Consultants. And it's for development within the organization to assess your organizational health, to help make sure that you're creating an environment that's attractive. Secondly, it's about retention. There are things, if your employees are highly motivated, then they are going to not only contribute to the culture, but also make that culture most attractive to this younger workforce for recruitment purposes. And so that's what we're looking at, from development of the organization to the retention and the recruitment of a workforce is what I'm excited about. And here's the caveat. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
Too many times I've been a part of things, professional development, and it's like, man, when is this thing over? I'm telling you, and I'll even offer this, and I'm going to throw it out. I'll give a money back guarantee, man. You're going to have a great time with what we're doing, because once again, we were made for purpose.
Right.
And as each of us identify our purpose, we're able to contribute to the greater good of the communities that we live in.
That's right.
Amen.
And you got a little bit of Rick Warren in there for those who know. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Walter, again. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode of our season 2 of Louisiana Catalyst podcast. The link for Mr. Walter Allen. Thank you again for your energy and your information. For my brother Quentin Durr, I'm Duron Talley. Thank you, Origin Bank, for the beautiful partnership and facility as well. Grace and peace. Until next time.
Thank y'all.